Yeah, so we just kind of roll into this. We don't really do like some hard open and some big extravagant um,
Yeah,
entry. Push that mic a little closer to you too, if you don't mind, Aaron. Keep an eye on that, will you?
I shall.
Um, this is going to be a good one tonight. This is going to be one of those that I think is going to get a lot of listens, and I think you bring a lot to the table. This is going to be a fun conversation.
I'm excited.
It's going to be great. So Jentry Anderson is here, gentryanderson.com. We're going to get into who she is and what she does and what she's experienced. You're going to want to tune in and listen to this because there is a lot to cover tonight, and this is going to be great. Before we get into that, I want to mention just real quick the sponsor for tonight's show is Brat Legacy Films. Everyone supports our military. We rarely discuss the military dependent, the kids, the moms, the dads that are left at home. BratLegacyFilms.com. They have a documentary that's getting ready to come out, I believe, in 2023. It's called Brat Ambition. It covers all of the life and success stories of people who are former military brats, like myself. This is going to be a great show. I know that Bo Bice is in it. I know that football player George Teague is in it, which is going to be fun. So visit their website, bratlegacyfilms.com. Actor John Schwab is in it. If you've ever watched, what was the Netflix show about the girl that played chess? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Queen's
Queen's
Gambit.
Gambit, yes. He's in that. He's an actor, very accomplished actor. And author Kim McKay is the director. And she's actually from here in Oklahoma. She's from Oklahoma City.
I did not know that.
So go check them out, bratlegacyfilms.com. If you want to support the project, you certainly can. There's a place to do that on their website. And check it out when it comes out. It's going to be worth watching for sure. So let's get into Jentry Anderson. This is going to be fun. I'm ready. Bachelor's degree in political science, international affairs, minored in Middle Eastern studies, and Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised you don't work for the government. Or do you?
I thought I was going to be a spy. I don't know what got into me, but I did not end up taking that route. Actually, quite the opposite. During college, when I was studying all of this, I was simultaneously working for Red Bull as a Red Bull girl,
Okay.
like driving the actual
The
Red Bull
car with the can in the
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
4 years.
Okay.
Working 40 hours a week doing that and going to school
Wow. Wow. Well,
and partying my butt off.
of course, some of us still do a little bit of that. You're a ufologist, which is fantastic. You fit right in here, and that's something we're going to definitely dive into. At one time, you did host a weekend show on Spaced Out Radio. You were a panel member on the Blind Frog Ranch in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
which is adjacent to the Skinwalker Ranch, which is something everyone's familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
You're a hypnotherapist focusing on alien UFO contactee hypnotic regressions.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that as well. Also, past life regressions, which is very interesting and a topic we've not really been able to discuss here on the show because we can't find anybody. So here you are right in front of us. There's other stuff that we'll get into as well. Your art has been featured on Coast to Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure all of our listeners are very familiar with Coast to Coast. And that's great. I actually was considering pirating a copy of your art and having it somewhere up here on the wall for you to sign or something for us. But
I'll just bring it to you. You can
yeah,
have
there you
it.
go. There you go. We'll put it up right here front and center for everybody. But let's talk about your work as a ufologist because
Okay.
I think a lot of our guests are tuning in for that, and it's something that I think recently we're seeing more and more information come to light.
Mm-hmm.
Our government is coming out with more stuff. The release of some videos. Why do you think we are seeing more and more of this come into the mainstream public media?
I think that there's been a shift in the consciousness, the collective consciousness of Earth, to be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
if we want to get down to the core of it.
Yeah.
I think that there are certain events that have taken place over the past 3 or 4 decades well, obviously, since, the 40s and beyond and forever, but especially in the past 3 that have been very altering to our physical planetary shift. And it is affecting people in a way that they're remembering a lot of things that have happened
In their own past.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Even yours.
So when you say collective consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
I know right now, the way the world is, we're very dug in. We're entrenched into our camps. This side, this religion, that religion.
Right.
That collective consciousness that you're talking about, is it somewhat of a subconscious and we don't really know that we're going that direction, or do people really feel it and they feel that pull?
I think it's actually an extreme in that we as humans don't remember inherently just the way that our physical form is in this 3-dimensional reality. It is it's something that we're born not remembering. And then I think that it's so extreme that there's one side of it that is pulling us to remember, and that's not typical in human nature. But it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's happening based on events that have taken place since Roswell. And especially since the 1990s. So I don't know. I think that, this is my theory, is that when we talk about the collective consciousness, we are all one vibrating, beings.
Right. Energy.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you can't really break that down that easily, but it's a humanitarian shift that is going towards this shift that is taking us into a state of remembrance of what's happened over the past several decades. There's a lot of talk about people that are remembering their 20 and back experiences in the 70s and 80s and the secret space force or the secret space program, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's a lot. I don't really know. We kind of have to break the questions down.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I know you're well studied in the history of UFOs, UAPs, whatever they want to call them these days. And since Roswell, there does seem like there's a ramping up of sightings and abduction and different types of things that people experience. But prior to that, for centuries, there's been different types of people who have logged certain flying objects in the sky and had nowhere near the technology that we know of at the time to have that available to them. So is this something that's been going on since the beginning of time, since some type of a humanoid walked the planet?
Yes. Yes, and it's simultaneously going on. Right. So you think of our universe in terms of dimensions. So you have, 1D. Okay. So if you can see my hand right now, it's going over a flat surface of a table.
Right.
And it's going back and forth, right and left. That's it.
Right.
And then you have 2D, and you're doing all those movements, but you can also go up and down.
Yes.
And then you have 3D, and then all of a sudden your hand shifts from being parallel to what we think of the center of the earth to it can now like move vertically, horizontally,
Right.
but shift and up and down. And then you have a fourth dimension. It's like a tesseract where you can now do all these things and you can squeeze certain things in. And then fifth and beyond, and we don't even know, we don't even understand, we can't even comprehend. But yes, these things have been going on. If you look at ancient Egyptian mythology and you see, I mean, it's so interesting that we can take the Bible and look at it and think, oh, okay, there's this, BC and this time since. And that's
Right.
really what we think of when
Yeah.
we think of religion.
That's our
And
timeline.
That's our timeline.
That we've been given.
Yeah,
Right.
before Christ. And it's like this very interesting way of ignoring the fact that there is so much evidence of life more than just life
Right.
in Egyptian mythology and all the petroglyphs and hieroglyphs and what they were explaining is otherworldly.
Right.
I mean, they're talking about beings with heads that are eagles
Yes.
and hawks
Yes.
and flying and shape-shifting.
Right. Right. Are we ready for that though? Are we ready to
No.
take that in? We're not, are we?
No.
Will we ever be ready?
Yes.
What will it take to get us ready?
We're close.
Yeah.
I think we're close. We can handle it.
Do you think that there's a collective push against it with probably certain governments that
Yes.
don't want that to get out there? Because it does kind of
Absolutely.
change the game a little bit, right?
It does change the game.
Yeah. And what we've seen, and the track record has been total denial up until very recently. And in fact, a mutual friend of ours, she runs MUFON Oklahoma, Mindy Toutfest. We really thought that 2021 was going to be possibly a year where we see something come forward as far as a disclosure goes.
Disclosure is a farce, in my opinion. What we perceive to be disclosure and our hope for it is a farce. It is an act.
It's the curtain.
It is very well known throughout the military and the government agencies and the world leaders that there are not only UFOs and other life forms out there, but that there are entities on Earth
Yeah. That are here now.
residing.
Right. Right.
And that there are underground civilizations.
See, I've if you've ever been out in public, I think I've seen some of them, to be honest. Like I'm not, I mean, it's a joke, but it's not really a joke. Like
No, it's not.
sometimes you can, I don't know if it's an uneasy feeling or you just kind of know or just kind of tell, but I've said that for years. Like I thought, and why wouldn't they be? It would just make sense to be here, if nothing else, just to monitor what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to wrap your head around all of this. It really is, but it's the proof is right in front of us. I've been looking at CIA documents since I was 16, reading Ingo Swann and listening and watching documents that were coming in to the CIA library that are now gone.
Yeah.
Pictures of the other side of the moon. We have the James Webb telescope out there.
Right.
It has the ability to go to Mars and take up close front pictures of that and the moon, which people are requesting, right?
But they won't.
They won't.
And why is that?
Why do you think that is?
There could be something there that they don't want us to know about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, is it possible that some of what we're seeing flying above is AI? Could it possibly be not a living being, but an actual just artificial intelligence that's sent? I mean, we've sent many things out into the universe and just sent it. Could it be something similar?
I think it's all the things. So I think that there is certain technology that it does not contain consciousness. And there's certain technology that does have a biofield, and it does have a resonance of biological matter that is conscious.
Right.
I think that there are certain biological entities that can create robotic, I guess, clones or,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I think that the possibilities are endless in
Right.
that regard.
For
But
sure.
for sure, when we talk about some of these craft, I think a lot of it has been back engineered by us, by humans, or if we want to call them humans, or avatars.
Right.
But it has, it pales in comparison to the orbs and the things that we see, the anomalies that you just can't explain.
Right. After Roswell, it's well documented that there was almost an immediate ramp up in technology, especially in the United States. But a company like Nokia was one that all of a sudden just went from being this experimental company to being, everything that it is. So obviously, I think a lot of people have finally come to the agreement that yes, something happened. We don't know what, but something happened there, and there was some technology. And I know you're very familiar with Bob Lazar, who's come forward and said he worked there and he was part of Skunk Works and all of that. And he's even said, yes, they have them there, and they've even dug them up, and they're even older than what they have from the 40s.
Yeah.
Roswell was interesting, was it not?
Roswell is the most prominent case in our modern times because it is the most avoided, especially in the past 5 to 10 years. They refuse to bring Don Schmidt into conversations and panels,
Right.
and he's the expert. And he's luckily a part of the International Council of Extraterrestrial Research. He's a board member. So it's great that he has a global presence. But the United States will hardly touch him anymore because they know that if they do that, and that is a part of disclosure, then they're going to have to answer
Yeah.
to what happened with the beings.
Right. Living beings.
Living
Yes.
beings.
Yes, because it's also believed that they didn't die in the crash.
They did not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That site, obviously,
Allegedly.
that site of the alleged crash has been picked apart from time to time, but do they have the right location? I tend to think that maybe there was some misinformation given to push people towards a certain area, and then where the actual location is probably still unknown, but in that general vicinity. Would you agree?
I would. And I agree because I know Don Schmidt, and he's in there's some things that are taking place, I guess I would say, in the next 6 months that will prove that theory right.
Some of our presidents have even allegedly been part of some of these discussions with extraterrestrials.
For sure.
Of course, President Eisenhower, is one that's discussed quite a bit.
Yes.
Nixon and his story of taking a guest of his to see a ship. do they let every president in on this, or do you think it's just something that sometimes they stumble across it and they don't have a choice?
The presidents are groomed, I think.
Yeah.
The only one that hasn't been, and that isn't a part of the family of grooming, is Trump. Oddly. I'm not a huge fan of Trump. I'm not advocating for Trump by any means whatsoever.
Sure.
But what I will say is that what I perceive from what I've heard, this is just my speculation.
Right. Pure opinion.
Pure opinion is that every single president that has been in office has been groomed for it since birth and before.
So when you see Bill Clinton saying, "Well, I've asked questions, but they're not telling me," and all of that's just fake. That's just not really what's going on. That's just a facade that they're putting up so that they don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, in my opinion. Yeah. It is it's something that they want, and they're not forced, but they chose it before they were in office.
So are they part of some bigger group? I know that there's talk of some type of a galactic federation situation. Are they part of that?
Yeah.
Are they still part of it once they leave office? I mean, just your opinion. Do you think they would keep them in that position since they know?
I think that it's so big that they are so conditioned into thinking that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So they keep telling themselves that it's what they should do.
They've been conditioned since birth to tell them that that's the right thing to do.
Are they human? Our leaders?
What is human?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about what, I don't particularly love this person, but I do at the same time because we're all one, but I'm angry with him, is the CIA director of intelligence. He has been coming out recently saying that everybody is hybrids.
Yeah, I've read that. And even there was an Israeli prime minister who had said something, or no, an Israeli defense minister who had said something very similar, maybe a year or two ago.
Right.
So if that's the case, then could it be that the visitations are to save the extraterrestrials' life form, to use us for that purpose, to help save them from something? I mean, because when you mix different breeds, let's just say a dog, for example, and you want the Labradoodle, you have to mix two different types of dogs that would never, in the wild, would never mix, supposedly.
Well, have you ever heard the theory that there are mantis beings living under the earth and that there are underground civilizations?
Is that similar to Hollow Earth theory, where you've got something
no,
living there?
Not necessarily Hollow Earth. I'm not going that far. I don't know. I haven't honestly looked into Hollow Earth, to be real with you.
Yeah.
But I have heard a lot of stories that coincide globally about underground civilizations that are, I mean, our Area 51 is it's a ploy,
Right. It's like the inflatable tanks they used in World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
not a real tank, but a blow-up
right.
tank. And from the air, it looks
And
Pretty
I
real.
I don't know what would be like caught on this podcast, to be honest, if I say the things that I want to say that will like get us in trouble, but I'm going to say it.
Fire away.
So, like Diego Garcia and the whole Indian Ocean is controlled by the cabal.
Okay.
And there are so many people right now that are having remembrances of 20 and back experiences.
So when you say 20 and back, what exactly does that mean?
It means that, so 20 and back is a term used for government abductions where they have taken humans and used them in a secret space program, abused them, have absolutely tormented them. And it's all mind control. It's all testing, cloning in underground facilities on Earth and off Earth.
Right.
And they can essentially put you back. And only 50 minutes have gone by, and you don't know that because once you're outside of time and space, 20 years have passed.
Is that just in your mind, or is that
I'm not sure.
you're actually doing it?
There's so much evidence that it's actually happening.
Are they doing that to change things for today?
Not in a positive way, but yes.
So by doing that, it allows the person to be or affect an event or someone.
That can take care of business.
Right.
Go and do trade off, like off planet trading.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that other groups of alien beings, or whatever you want to call them, have certain technology that they'll trade with us if we give them certain information about our psyche.
Is it our brain that's the most interesting part of us to them, you
No,
think?
it's our emotions.
Emotions, not a brain or a soul or anything like that.
Soul.
So it's
It's
that,
our
that
emotions.
connection.
It's our emotions.
So
Humans are incredibly emotional.
I have heard all types of interviews where that is the one thing that they say when they're in the presence of an ET, is that they had no emotion to them whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So that would make sense.
Yeah.
That's what they're most interested in.
Well, if you think about it, it does make sense, because like the evolution, if you think of an alien and how, like, if you think of even just how people describe a spacecraft or aliens, how they're all the same.
Right.
The alien ships are very much like the same in terms of everything is very clean. There's none of this. There's no art.
Yeah, there's no decals on the window.
Right.
Or there's yeah, right.
I mean,
if I had a ship, I'd have a decal on it
right,
somewhere.
you'd be putting your bumper sticker on
Right,
it.
right.
Like, this
Yeah,
is mine,
right.
you know?
Earthling.
Yeah. So, but if you think about the evolution of just anything, it kind of makes sense that there's pros to it. So these beings don't have to eat junk food. Like, that's a pro, you know? They
Sure.
don't have to survive on like eating their emotions,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
There's certain advantages to evolving in a way that is productive.
It probably even lessens the amount of violence.
Exactly. There's no fighting. You don't fight anymore. Right. There's all of that. But with that comes a loss of emotion and your ability to connect. And they hybridize a lot with humans because of our ability to connect to Earth and nature and each other.
Do we really want them to be emotional? I don't know that we do,
I
to
don't
be
know.
honest.
I don't. I don't know the answer.
I mean, because if they're not emotional now and we're still here, I think I'm kind of okay with them
Yeah,
keeping
I'm
their emotions
out.
in check.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. If they have the ability, then maybe we could influence it. I don't know.
that's a two-way street, unfortunately.
It sure is.
How many, and this might be impossible to know, but just in your opinion, how many different types are we dealing with right now that are visiting this planet or that are already here?
On this planet, um,
I mean, it's obviously impossible to just peg a number,
I
but
wonder. Well, it is so hard because I think that there's not only one universe.
right.
I'm talking not just world or galaxy. I'm talking universe. So, I don't know what our relationship is with other universes. So it's hard for me to funnel
It's
that.
hard to like wrap your head around that.
I think that there are probably, okay, if I'm going to throw out a ballpark number, I guess I would say like 1 million.
Stephen Hawking famously once said, mathematically, there has to be life out there somewhere. What that life is, whether it's microbial or it's actually somebody with higher
Micro,
intelligence,
yeah.
there's mathematically the chances are that yes, there's something or someone out there. Um, where do you think? And you've kind of touched on this once already, but where's this headed? Like, what? You said 6 months, somewhere in there, we're going to learn something or something's going to happen. But where ultimately do you think this is headed?
I think it's about our choices, and that's really hard to say because I think that it's ultimately about what we as humans are deciding to do about this. So there's not much. I think it's pretty tilted right now in favor of of humanity and like the what we want, the good, you
Right,
know.
right.
But there's a lot of humanity that's bad. But it's also why I think this is I think that something really big happened in the 1990s that unavoidably, in order for Earth to not be destroyed, there were a plethora of other entities, including like Arcturians, that came to Earth.
So they had to engage
They
at that
had
point.
to.
Yeah.
And I think that changed a dynamic and shifted a paradigm in our psyche, activated a lot of people in ways that is good
Yeah.
for us. They could not have they would not have intervened had something so devastating not happened in the 1990s. And
I barely remember the 90s. So I don't think I was activated at all.
that's probably exactly why nobody really does remember,
Isn't that weird?
isn't it?
Now, I've got kids who were born in the 90s. I obviously remember that. But there is like this space of time where the 90s is just kind of a blur. I didn't even care for the music in the 90s, to be honest. But I'm much older than you, so.
Yeah.
The 90s was a weird time. It was a very
Yeah.
weird time.
I
So it
think
would make
that
sense that there was something going on affecting us.
yeah, I think so. I think so. I've been listening to a lot of people in my research and in hypnotherapy that are just randomly talking about, and that nobody knows each other. That's just what's wild.
Yeah.
they're talking about an alien invasion that happened in 1994 that was absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah.
And that I know it sounds so crazy. I know it does.
But that's, I mean, there's a lot of things that sound crazy that end up being perfectly true.
I
And they
know.
don't sound crazy anymore after the fact.
I know.
So it almost makes it almost fits. I mean, it almost makes complete perfect sense, because that was a time when it really felt like, so, a century's coming to an end at that point. You're entering a new century. So there seems like there should be some type of something that happens. And I'm not talking about Y2K either.
No.
The computers were just fine.
Yeah. I'm not either.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just it's pretty wild. But I think that where we're headed as a result of all of that, or whatever, it doesn't even matter, that part, but you feel it. I think so. We're talking about this.
Right.
We are realizing that this is messed up. Like the way that we're being indoctrinated, more and more people are fleeing from the church and from religion. And if you just go back to the fall of the Roman Empire and Constantine and, the whole construction of what was going to be placed in the Bible.
Right.
And how Jesus was going to be portrayed to the masses was all about control. I mean, it's so easy to see.
Sure.
That it's, thou shalt not.
And we're going to put this in and leave that out.
Control. How do we control the masses?
Right.
I mean, the Roman Empire controlled the world.
Was our level of understanding, our level of just simply being educated, was it much lower, you think, then?
No.
And we couldn't process it?
Not at all.
So they knew, but they just
Even
they couldn't do anything about it.
I think they were way smarter than us.
Really?
In fact,
Really?
I think that we've lost our touch to earth. We are the dumb ones.
Yeah.
I think that what happened was suppression. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was abusive.
If you look at some of their construction, we can't even do it today.
Of course not. No.
But they have an idea.
They had the wherewithal to leave us petroglyphs. Right now, we would just write things in our journal.
Right.
They get destroyed in the rain.
Right. So like the Library of Alexandria, it burned to the ground. What did it hold?
Right.
What could we have learned from that?
Well, I bet the Vatican has it. Let's ask them.
They do. I guarantee you they have something, because they've had their fingers in the cookie jar for a long time. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this past life regression work that you do, because it's a topic we wanted to discuss on the show for a while. And now that I've got you here, I want to touch on that before you leave. Is it something that, not necessarily a reincarnation situation, but you say we come back and we forget, we don't remember. It's almost like being dipped in the river of forgetfulness, and then you come back and you experience some deja vu, or you experience something, or like the young kid in Muskogee, Oklahoma, who as a young kid knew how to fly airplanes, and he basically told them, "Yeah, I flew bombers in World War II."
Right.
Is that something that everybody has and experiences, or do you find where some people just don't have a past life?
Everybody does, but it doesn't mean that you had a past life on Earth, and time is not linear. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going straight from one life on Earth to another. There could be, simultaneous experiences that you're having. But a lot of times humans on Earth have actually been reincarnated like hundreds or thousands of times.
To be another
Human.
person, the human.
Yes.
Yeah. So just I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
like General Patton believed that he had been reincarnated several times over, and he would see a battlefield and know, yes, I've been on this field before as a legionnaire, or whatever.
Yep.
Can it come through to people that way without any hypnotherapy, or do they have to have some type of an experience to know what that was?
So typically, if and you can find a lot of this data on at the University of Virginia. They have a massive department dedicated just to reincarnation. It is huge. So like the evidence is right here.
Right.
So the data suggests that when you're in a theta state of mind, or I think it's theta, is it, or delta? Which one is it that you're in before you're 6? I think it's theta. So you are, the years 1 to 6, you are absolutely inclined to remember past lives. So if you go to the University of Virginia, I think it's like 90% of all of the documents that are about reincarnation are people that are 6 and younger
Wow.
that remember.
They're still connected, so to speak. Yeah.
And then after that, it's harder to remember unless you've been writing it or journaling it or doing something with art, apparently.
Or music.
Or
Is music a connector
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
That would make sense. Why do you think it is that, and I've always been jealous of these people, and I know jealousy is not a great thing, right? But I've always been jealous of the people who you've known for a long time, maybe most of your life, and they always knew what they wanted to do when they were an adult.
Me too.
Like they were like, oh yeah, they're 7 years old, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna grow up and be a fireman. I already know.
Oh,
That's what I
same.
want to do. I'm like, well, how do you even know that?
My older sister, she's like, I want to be a doctor. Now she runs Emory Hospital in Atlanta.
How does that? Is that part of that connection? Is that something that maybe they've done in the past, and now they just know that's what they're good at. That's what they should do.
Probably. I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I do see that all the time. And you saying that, I know it sounds woo, or there's no way for me to back that up, but yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder, what does that say about me if I've never known?
You're an investigator.
I've just never known what I want to do. Like even now, I'm like,
You're
I don't
a
know what I wanna do.
learner. You're absorbing information.
No, I feel like I have to do a lot of stuff. Does that make sense? Like I feel like I do one thing for a while. Now I got to go do this. Now I got to go do that. Now I got to go do that. So I don't know what that says about that type of person.
Hallelujah, me too.
We're in the same camp. Yeah, that's great. Does the sessions that you hold, because I know you're a coach as well, and without dropping any names, what are some of the more odd things that you've come across in that type of work? And by odd, I mean just something that sticks in your head after the fact and you still remember today, something that was interesting.
Well, there has been a situation in which, gosh,
Don't get yourself in trouble now.
no, it might be such a long story, but I'll give you
Give me the Cliff Notes version.
Okay. So I have had like shared experiences that were so bizarre, involving extraterrestrials. This has to be a conversation for the next time,
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely.
But
Yes.
I will tell you that there were other witnesses involved too, and there were shared paranormal activities that were going on, including an orb that came shooting into my phone in the middle of the night. And I shot up in bed and watched it happen. And then immediately and instantly, this person was calling me.
Wow.
It shot into my phone from my bathroom. And I shot up. I shot up in bed and it shot from the bathroom into my phone instantly.
That person, forgive me, but that person was living.
That person
right?
was living and calling me, freaking out because I was crying. I was crying. I was in bed, trying to cry myself to sleep, freaking out about this certain incident.
Right.
And this person that did not know what was happening, but that was involved, called me at 3 a.m. And
they're not, are they a blood relative?
No. He lives in Boulder.
How do you explain that?
Well, I don't know, but an alien being also shapeshifted into him.
You had an experience that we've discussed on the phone, an Earth Day experience. You want to talk about that?
Sure.
We've got some time left.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Earth Day. Earth Day 2022.
2022. So
April
this is pretty
22nd.
fresh.
Yeah.
This is pretty recent.
Yep.
Okay.
So 6 friends and I were at D'Alessandro's, which is a restaurant in Tulsa. We were sitting on the patio. It was about 7:30 at night. We were celebrating a friend's birthday. It was a beautiful indigo blue sky. Just gorgeous, clear. And there were these 6 black balls of something. They were very far away, I will say. They were very far away.
In the sky?
In the sky.
Yeah.
And they were like zigzagging across one another. But it was so far away that, in my mind, me being the one that's suddenly into UFOs, I didn't want to be the one being like, look at the UFOs.
Right, sure.
But all my friends were like, what,
Right.
So then they said that they have to be weather balloons. So I'm thinking, okay, I can wrap my head around that.
Do we launch weather balloons in Tulsa?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so we'll go with it.
I just was like, okay, fine. I can wrap my head around that because as soon as it was there, it also went away.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we settled that. I'm like, fine, air balloons or water or whatever. Right. They were saying all sorts of things. They were also saying that they were kites. I'm like, okay.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, about 5 minutes later, my friend Kevin was like, Gentry, there's your UFO. And this massive cube in the sky was tilted on its axis and rotating horizontally across the sky. And it looked like a black opal. Like an opal pearl, like this.
So a little shiny,
like
little sheen to it, right?
But a black one.
Right, yeah. So there was some glimmer or something to it that you could visually see? Mm-hmm. No.
It looked like it was like aluminum foil.
And you could distinctly tell the shape of it.
But it was see-through in certain parts. It looked like an opal.
Yeah.
It looked like an opal deep, like the depth of it.
Yes.
From the core.
How long did this stay around?
Not long. It was spinning. It was rotating and spinning on its axis. And once my friend said that, he looked down. He wouldn't, but everybody else looked up.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't look up. He wouldn't look back up. And I was yelling at him, why aren't you looking?
Right. Look at this.
Why aren't you looking? And he couldn't. He just was shaking his head. No.
Just a little too much. Just a little too much to process in the moment.
Yeah, he would not look.
Yeah.
And then it went behind a building, and then it never appeared. And then that same night, we went to go listen to live music, and I instantly had an ability to play music without ever touching a musical instrument in my life.
So I want to touch on this. I want to pause you right there because that is so unique, I think, because I've read a ton and I know that it does happen. I know that some people can wake up from a coma, for example, and all of a sudden have some type of an ability. And a lot of times it is music.
I will show you.
Did anyone else that was with you experience the same thing after the fact?
No.
You were the only one.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Because I don't know. I think that happened for me so that other people could probably see it.
Almost like we need someone to be able to share this.
Like that I wouldn't think I was crazy.
So they knew you were able to handle it.
Yeah. I had already had a premonition and several psychic experiences prior to this. I have had several that I could go into. Clairaudient experiences that were also shared, that people knew that I there was no way that I could have known what I knew.
Right.
I knew people's names. I healed myself of TMJ. I had several pretty wild experiences that led me to this point.
How did you know you could just play anything without having sheet music or without having any experience? Did you just, it was
spontaneous.
You just knew like that?
I didn't even know. My fingers just started doing it.
And what did you first play? Do you remember?
Pilgrim. No. Paul Benjamin.
And what instrument?
Well, it's not an instrument. So
okay.
So it's like my fingers are dancing.
Yeah.
So it's not one instrument. It's like I precognitively know what's going to happen.
Okay. And you don't even have to have music that you're familiar with for this?
No. It can be on the radio. You can play it for me right now. Bust out a guitar.
Do you?
And I will do it. Even if you mess up, I will mess up too.
So it's very curious to me because I'm sure we've all had a friend or someone in our life who is really good at something that you wanted to be really good at. And it just came so natural to them that it kind of made you sick. Like, I want to be that good at that, and I'm not. But they don't work at it, and I work my tail off to try and be that good.
Right. I don't play any instruments, though. So,
but when you hear the music, you can, you know what's coming.
I know somehow. I'm not reading. It's wild. Like, musicians are around Tulsa think that I'm reading their mind.
Yeah.
Some of them are scared of me.
That would make sense. Can you read minds?
No. Not to my
I had
knowledge.
to ask.
Not to my knowledge.
What's been the weirdest experience for you personally with that? Was it just that initial, having that knowledge, or have you experienced something else since?
The weirdest experience I think I've ever had is seeing an alien.
Which is the art that was featured on Coast to Coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the most wild thing. And it will take, I have to do that story justice because the synchronicities involved that led up to it, I couldn't tell you that story without explaining certain things that happened beforehand 3 months prior,
Right.
because it is exactly what it depicted.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get into that next time. Next time you
I
come
mean,
on.
we could do it. I'm not afraid of like talking about it right now. If you want to do it, we can talk about it. I don't know
I mean,
how
if
much time you have.
if you've got, I'm not on a clock. I mean,
Okay.
I can go as long as you want.
What about you? Okay.
Okay, so there was a build up to this. You said so. We've got some time here, and
Okay.
so first let's talk. When was this?
This was, I think it was June 18th,
Of
2022.
okay,
Okay.
June 18th.
So let me give you 2 stories real quick that lead up to this.
Okay.
The first being, I was put in contact with my now mentor, Stuart Davis. He is a musician. He has like 12 albums out. He is brilliant. He's been on Coast to Coast, I don't know, 10 times. With George Knapp.
What's his website? Do you know it?
Stuart Davis.
Stuart Davis. Everybody just Google Stuart Davis.
Stuart Davis, artist, musician, Mantis.
How does he spell Stuart?
Stuart.
Okay, there you go.
Stuart Davis. He is known in the ufology world because of his contact with a 8-foot praying mantis being that appeared to him. And George Knapp is like obsessed with Stuart Davis.
I'm always nice to the praying mantis.
And
He's
so deep. He's a genius. I mean,
Yeah.
he calls himself this circus freak, and he kind of is. But he's brilliant, and he's a comedian. He's a documentarian. He writes a lot of movies and plays, and he is so brilliant on so many levels. I just adore him. And I'm so grateful that I met him, and I met him through another mentor of mine who was actually my first mentor, which is Mike Cleland. He writes books on owls, UFOs, and synchronicities.
Okay.
And he's also been on Coast to Coast several times, and he's the first person I reached out to in ufology is Mike. And Mike and I talked for about a year before he put me in contact with Stuart.
Yeah.
And he also put me in contact with Kimberly. I can't. Why am I blanking on her name right now?
Wilson.
No, it'll come to me. But anyway, Stuart and I had this very interesting series of events when we first met that were synchronistic in terms of like strange paranormal stuff that was going on around our homes. And I had never met him.
Right.
We just talked on the phone. And he told me, you know, when he first met me that he wasn't to charge me because he was told that I'm lineage from his spirit guides.
Okay.
Right? So then one night I was out seeing live music at seeing Paul Benjamin over at the Colony in Tulsa, and I get this phone call at 12:03 a.m. and it's from Stuart Davis, and so I answer it, and it is this highly electronic noise, something I cannot replicate.
Almost like the old fax machine noise.
Like AOL dial-up, but
Right.
so different.
Yeah.
Something I can't even...
Right.
Something really wild.
Yeah.
And it scared the crap out of me. So much so that I ran out of the bar, and I immediately had visions. As soon as I walked out of the bar and ran out, I was by myself. I saw visions of Stuart sitting in a penthouse. To me, it appeared that way. It looked like a penthouse. There was a wall of windows. He was sitting in a chair with armrests, and one of his arms was resting on one of the armrests, and he was holding a cocktail in that arm, leaning, and he was staring at me. And then I saw visions of my life, like as though he was showing them to me. And the visions were of me melting crayons on the ground when I'm 3 years old. Me popping a zit in my parents' bathroom when I'm like 14. Like things I don't think of. I don't even know.
Right. Not a significant memory, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And I called him, and I am freaking out after this. And he is too, because he says that every alarm in his neighborhood is going off. There's paranormal stuff going on in his house. And he was asleep. He's like, I did not call you.
12:03.
Yes. 12:03. And so we're both freaking out. And so there's that part of it. Then, fast forward, this summer, I go to Utah for a documentary on UFOs. I'm filming a documentary there, and we are in the basin. We're at Blind Frog Ranch. We have been spending days there filming, doing all this stuff, and they asked me to lead a CE5 event, like a meditation.
Right.
I've never done anything like that, but I decided, why not?
Give it a shot.
So we all sit around and we do the CE5, and I orchestrate the whole thing. But as soon as I was done with it, I had to leave because I had to go be on a radio show, Spaced Out Radio, right? So I had to leave, and I was so upset because I was like, they're all going to see the UFOs.
Right.
And I'm going to be gone.
Yeah.
So I go back with the producer to our Airbnb, which is like this ranch house. So he's setting up all this equipment outside everywhere. And I am on the radio for 3 hours. And the last hour of the radio show, my head is pounding, just pounding. And I cannot understand why I'm thinking I've got to, get up and get ibuprofen or ask him to get me some.
Right.
Well, he's pacing around, like, all of a sudden, inside. And I'm like, what are you doing? Thinking, geez, like, what was his problem? And he walks over to me, and it's like the last 5 minutes of the show. And if you actually go back and look at the show, you can see the shift in the color of the whole room. I freeze. My hair, like, freezes back. Like, it is wild. And he shows me, he turns the camera around, and it's that picture that I painted. It's a FLIR image camera of an alien being peering behind a wall, and I was shocked.
Right.
I thought that the people at the ranch had sent it to him at Blind Frog Ranch.
Right.
I was like, no. Oh my God, I cannot wait to talk to him about this. I was shocked. So then I get off the radio, and then as soon as I'm done, I run outside and I go like, where did you get that? Who sent that to you? He's like, it's gone. It's gone. I'm like, what do you mean it's gone? He was so this guy is like an evidence maniac.
Yes.
And so for this video and camera picture just to be gone, it disappeared.
Right.
He was freaking out. He was like in tears, crying that it was gone. And I'm like, why are you crying? He's like, because that was behind you. I took that of you.
Wow.
And it was right behind you the whole time.
Right.
And there was a portal looking thing above the sky that we ended up sending into the FLIR company to have them analyze. And they couldn't figure it out. Right.
Right.
So, with that said, I will tell you the story. So, one night this summer, it was a few weeks after I get back from Blind Frog Ranch, I come home at night, getting ready for bed, and my neighbor across the street from me, he lives across the street. I can see him through his window, and he can see through mine. And he watches my cats when I go out of town. He's 65. He calls me and he's like, Jentry, there's a man standing above your loft and the empty loft above me, staring at me, just staring straight at me, will not stop, just staring at me.
Right. You can see his face.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, so I go over to the window and I look over at him. I see him. And he's like, he's just staring at me. He's just staring at me in this empty loft. What is he doing? I'm like, I have no idea. And then I look catty corner, like below him.
Right.
And there is a gray alien being perfect.
Just like the drawings you see.
Just
yeah.
a gray alien.
Right. Tall, short.
It was sitting. It was sitting in the windowsill, perfectly in my line of view. Just straight on. Just there. And I'm like, my blood goes, hot. I pull up my camera. I'm not about to video this because that would require me getting off the phone with him.
Right.
I'm not about to do that.
No.
So I pull up my camera. The moment I pull up my camera and I pull it up, this being turns to its right. It gets up and it shapeshifts in front of my eyes. It turns into a bunch of geometric squares and literally shapeshifts into the profile of a man. And there's a wall right here. I'm trying not to get too far away from the microphone. But there's a wall.
Yeah.
It gets up. When it gets up and it goes behind the wall. And then it peers out just like, and it's now an alien being again.
Right.
It had shape-shifted into the profile of a man.
Turned into almost like pixels.
Yes.
And then behind the wall.
Behind the wall.
Yeah.
And then it peers back behind the wall like this.
Right.
And it's an alien being again.
Yes.
And it's doing the exact same pose that it did in that FLIR image camera.
Yeah.
And then it turns this way and it shape shifts again into a bunch of geometric squares and it sits down and it's now a man and it's now Stuart Davis and it puts its arm on the armrest and is sipping a cocktail, staring at me. And then...
So it knew the image of that you had in your head.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then it gets up again and does the same thing over.
It
Gets
repeats
up.
it.
Yep. Just repeats it 3 times. Simultaneously, I'm talking to Rick, my neighbor. And I'm like,
Who's over there?
who's over there?
Yes.
And I'm like, does it look like a human? Does the person above me look like a human? And he's like, I don't know why. I'm like, I swear to you, there's an alien being. I'm
Right.
freaking out.
Sure.
And he's like, as soon as I ask him, does it look like a human? He says, I don't know. And he starts to slowly close his blinds. I'm like, what are you doing?
On purpose?
Well,
did he know he was doing that or?
just listen.
Okay. Sorry.
So it's okay. So he's pulling him down. Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? I'm freaking out. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, babe. And he starts to pull him back up. And I'm like, okay. And then he just turns around and walks off. I'm like, where are you going? What are you doing?
Right.
You called me freaking out,
Right.
And he just is gone. And I hear all of a sudden this muffling. It sounds like an amplifier is in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear him. I'm like, Rick, what are you doing? And he goes, he told me to get under the sheets.
Really? So whatever he was looking at told him that.
Yeah, I guess so. Because then he proceeded to have a conversation with someone in the room that was not me.
That you could hear.
That I could hear.
Yeah.
And it was, his voice was all of a sudden monotone. He told me to get into the sheets. And then it was, how did you get in here? Where am I? Who are you? And the last thing that I heard before I had to call 911 to get them over there to intervene, whatever was happening or whatever was happening above me,
Right.
was, I'll see you in hell.
Not his voice, though. Someone else's?
It was
or
his voice.
It was from him.
It was from him. He was he was scared, but not enough to be like screaming. It was like so monotone the whole time.
Right.
It was like, how did you get in here? I'll see you in hell. Like, and then the next morning, and he doesn't remember anything. But to this day, he asks me if I'm watching out for him, and we talk about it, and he's super scared and weirded out.
Right. Has he experienced anything since?
We saw a UFO, I think. We saw something like maybe a month or two later. That was in the sky. I could send that to you, actually.
Yeah, wow. Have you tried any type of regression with him?
He's really scared.
Sure.
I don't think that he wants to do that. I've talked to him about it, but he was only here. He lives in Texas, and he was working on the building. They hired him to work on one of the construction buildings downtown to fix it. He's like a really mad scientist when it comes to construction, and so he was here like 5 days a week for about a year and a half, and in the same,
Right.
complex.
Right.
But he's gone now, but I still talk to him, and I don't know what he would. He just seems like always making sure that I just am like, I got this under control.
Right.
Like, I don't think that he would ever. I feel awkward asking him that.
What did Stuart say?
Stuart wouldn't talk to me for like a month. He was so freaked out.
Did he have some type of a memory of this?
Not at all.
No.
He put me in contact with a woman who is contracted with the CIA to do remote viewing. She's 77.
It's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. And so I've had several conversations with her, and we've had other experiences since then. A UFO with a sighting with a guy with Tourette's that said some things that, I mean, it's a whole thing. So like 3 weeks later, I was talking to Stuart, and I was going through these videos on my phone from that day because I wanted to see every little thing I was thinking, doing.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
And
The build-up.
yeah.
What happened?
And I had this random video on my phone where I wasn't even filming anything. I accidentally pushed video. And it's of me getting out of my car in my parking garage, and George Knapp is talking to Stuart Davis in the background about the mantis being, and how the mantis, and Stuart Davis was laughing and saying, well, sometimes the mantis just chooses you.
Right.
And I'm like, what the, this happened at 12:11,
Yeah.
PM.
Right.
It was the most bizarre thing. And so I sent it to him, and I'm like, Stuart, do you think this has something to do with the mantis? What do we think? And so he calls me. We have this 3-hour conversation, this extensive conversation. And I was like, I gotta go. I'm going to see live music. We go to the Starlight Bar over on 11th. And I'm sitting outside with 2 guys I've never met. One of them, his dad, designs telescopes. And the other guy has Tourette's and is like very open about it. You know, talks about
Kind
it.
of have
and-
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it was just like a cool conversation we were having, just
Sure.
like grooving. Nothing about UFOs. We
Right.
had not talked about UFOs one time.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this light comes directed like straight towards us.
Yeah.
And I just look at it and I did not want to say anything about UFOs. Like, I'm very cautious.
Yes.
I know that people
Sure.
in Oklahoma are like, what are you talking about?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of that. And so I just kind of direct their attention and I say, look at that drone. And they both look. And I'm like immediately grabbing my phone to take a video because I know this look of this.
Right.
And I say, I'm going to take a video of this. And I swear, when I'm done, it's going to be gone. I want you to watch my every move.
Right.
And so I start recording and I'm making sure that these two guys are watching. And this light, sure enough, comes straight towards us and it turns into two. And it turns into a red one and a green one. And it's like perfect, like just.
Right.
And so then it just like, it goes this way and then it darts all the way over. And they freak out. They're like, that is not a drone. And so then I'm still filming. And then it starts blinking as though it's like a helicopter and then it just goes off. I'm like, all right. And I'm like, look at my phone still, you know.
Right.
Still recording, right? Let's end the recording. Let's go out. Let's go into my phone, my camera
Right.
roll. And sure enough, it's nowhere to be found.
Huh.
And the guy with Tourette's goes, because it's with the mantis.
Just out of the blue.
And I said, what did you say? And he was like, huh? And his friend goes, you said it's with the mantis?
Right.
And I'm like, what?
Why wouldn't you use the guy with Tourette's? Right. I mean, he's the one that's going to say anything anyway.
It was absolutely nuts.
Wow.
I had not mentioned, they would have had zero idea that I was just having a conversation with Stuart Davis in Boulder about a mantis being responsible. And I was talking to Stuart about how pissed I was that I could not get footage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this happens.
Yeah. And you still didn't get it.
No. But then I was able to, after that, Stuart put me in touch with a wizard in Germany. And a
interesting.
lot of other things happened after that.
So I'll be filming in Utah in probably this spring.
Yeah.
Any advice?
Heck yeah.
Now it's not. I mean, we're not filming the sky in a documentary. It's just a movie. But what should I look for?
Oh my. Well, are you going to the basin? Are you going to Salt Lake? Where are you going?
No. Well, we'll be outside of Salt Lake.
Okay.
Camas.
That whole area is just be respectful of the land and don't litter. And like if you go and you do digging or anything or rock hounding or find crystals or whatever you do with the land, just like be super respectful of it, because I think that there's a lot of energies and skepticism on, like, if you're spiritual like that,
Right.
they're gonna make sure you're like aligned, or they like will like not be. I don't know. I think these spirits have ways of just attaching to whatever your vibration is.
Yeah, we need a lot of things to go right, not wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong means money, so we need things to go right.
That you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just
well,
keep a positive attitude.
Okay.
It's your aura and energy is everything.
So one more question, then I'm gonna let you get out of here, and then I'm gonna try to talk you into coming back at some point.
Okay.
I've read that in studies, with people who have Alzheimer's, that when they play classical music to them through headphones, that it begins to reconnect for them, right? I've also read that classical music, especially older classical music, is almost like a language in and of itself. So as someone who has found this ability, that's been given this ability to hear, understand music, what do you think of when I say classical music is like its own language?
I think all music is classical, but I know what you mean in terms of how we perceive it. And I think that it is a resonance. It's a vibration that actually affects your biology.
Yeah. Which is why it would work in the brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It's just so understated and underutilized in modern science. And
They even know that it helps
medicine.
plants grow when
Absolutely.
they play them classical
You can
music.
talk to your plants and they will grow.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point,
You can think to your plants and they will grow.
right? Yeah. That would make sense. I mean, that they would be
I
in
don't
tune.
think to my plants, so it's so sad. I'm like, I have to
neglected.
speak to my children first.
They're neglected. No, at some point tonight, I wrote classical. I don't know why. We were in the discussion of your abilities and the music, and I wrote that, and that's what made me think of this study that I was reading about how it's helping people with Alzheimer's.
We need to talk about that more.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody with Alzheimer's?
I did. My wife's grandfather had it, and he passed. But I think that's an area where I think a lot of people are starting to try to move toward, because after an hour of that type of therapy, they receive, anywhere from a few minutes to an hour of being themselves again. So it's definitely something's definitely going on there. And that just popped in my head while we were having this conversation. So
That's pretty cool.
So I'm going to get us out of here. I think you've been on long enough. I'm going to wear you out with the questions. But I want everybody to go to your website, gentryanderson.com. What will they find when they go there?
Well, I just launched it. It's still a work in progress, but I am offering hypnotherapy sessions, and I am doing harmonic Reiki for healing. So I have taken, been attuned to the Reiki situation, and I've kind of taken my own psychic ability with music and incorporating it. So it's pretty interesting. I've had some very strange things happen with it already, and I want to help people. So if you have interest in that, or if there's anybody that wants like psychic guidance, there's a way for you to totally tap into that. Everybody has this ability,
right?
As long as you're human,
right? Well, that's great. I want everybody to go check it out. Be sure and share this broadcast. This is a great one. I appreciate you coming in. Misty came in as well, sitting over there quiet in the corner, laughing at my ridiculousness, I guess.
Mine.
But again, everybody, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe as well, and we'll continue to bring these to you. Gentry, thank you. It's been a blast.
I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
And as soon as we have you scheduled in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months or something, we'll let everybody know. I'm sure they'll love to have you back on.
Cool.
All right.
I can't wait.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.